welcome to Good Grief, the podcast dedicated to demystifying and destigmatizing grief, compassion, and humor. I'm Nikki. I'm an end-of-life doula and a grief coach in Columbus, Ohio. And today, a solo episode. I've had a lot of amazing guests on the show, and I get so excited about meeting new people and wanting to share their stories that sometimes I forget to do some of these solo episodes. So today I'm going to do that. But first, I would like to give a shout out to my new Patreon patron, Matt. Matt, thank you so much for being a patron. And if you would like to get a shout out and be awesome like Matt, you can go over to patreon.com/Nikki the Death Doula. You get early access to the show. You get grief affirmations in your inbox on Mondays. You get other bonus content. There's all sorts of great stuff over there. You can follow me on Patreon for free. You'll get a little bit of content. You can follow me for $1. You get a little bit more. For $10 a month, you get all those other things I mentioned, early access. If you want to be a VIP, you can get a free coaching session for me once a month. And that is at just $50 a month. So, patreon.com/Nikki the Death Doula. Also, real quick, if you are watching on YouTube or if you're watching the video version on Spotify, or I don't know if Apple does videos. I don't know. I'm making video podcasts now, but I would like to take a moment to show you this. For those of you listening at home, I'm showing off my Good Grief with Nikki the Death Doula t-shirt. You too can get a t-shirt. If you go to my website, nikkithedeathdoula.com/podcast, you can see I've got some great merch there. I've got also great information and links to the books that my guests have written and other links to things that you may have seen on past shows. I'm still building it, so there's not a ton there yet, but I'm kind of doing it as I go. And you can get the merch there as well. And on the back of the shirt, well, for those of you watching at home, you can see it, or on YouTube, wherever you're watching. Maybe if you're watching, I hope you're not driving. If you're listening, that's okay. Anyway, on the back, I've got my tagline that I say at the end of every episode: your grief is yours, your feelings are valid, and grief doesn't always have to suck. So please check that out at nikkithedeathdoula.com/podcast. All right, that's enough of that. That's not why you're here. You're here to listen to me talk about grief, right? So this is a question I get asked very frequently as a death doula. For those who come to my death cafes or people who just know what I do, and they maybe have that feeling of, you know what, I do want to start these difficult conversations about what my wishes are and what I would like to happen during, if I am dying or after my death. I'm ready to make these decisions, but I don't know how to talk about this. Or maybe your parents are getting older and you want to understand what their wishes are. Either way, you kind of got that feeling, I'm ready to start having these conversations, but I'm just so scared of how it's going to be perceived and how do I even start this conversation, Nikki? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. It's just how to at least get started on these difficult conversations around death and dying. Because yes, nobody likes to talk about these things. And I know myself, when I was younger, I would ask my parents from time to time what they might want. Because I had no idea, do we have a family plot somewhere? Would they rather be cremated? Do they want a joint headstone? I didn't know. And I would ask those questions, or questions about where would I get access to your bank accounts? Or do you have life insurance? Yes, I was that kind of kid. This is more my early adulthood, but I would ask these questions, and they weren't but they weren't as excited to talk about these things as I was. And it wasn't, obviously I came at it with a angle of, I really wanted and need to know these things, because the time will come when they won't be here and I have to manage all this stuff. And I just want to make sure I'm making the right decisions to honor their wishes. And we just have this mentality sometimes in our culture of if we talk about death, it's going to make it happen, or it's just morbid or weird. And no, it's not. It's important to have these conversations. If you've been listening to my podcast for more than one episode, I always harp on this, that it's so important to start these conversations. So how do we do this without making the person across from you want to crawl under the table? Well, it is awkward, okay? It's real. But we do need to have these conversations. And I promise you, I'm going to put this right here, beginning of the episode, talking about death will not make it happen. I promise it won't. Okay. If you talk about it and then somebody dies the next day, that is pure coincidence. You did not will that into existence. I promise you. So here's how to start some of these conversations without really upsetting the person next to you. So first of all, make sure you're finding the right time. Maybe Thanksgiving dinner's not the right time. I mean, no judgment here if that's what you want to do, but find the right moment. Make sure everybody's in kind of a good mood. Maybe not during a heated conversation about other things. Let's find a time when people are in a good headspace. We're relaxed. Maybe we're sitting outside having a drink on the front porch, or, sometime when everybody's just feeling a little more relaxed. And start these conversations with I statements. Don't jump into, hey, what do you want to happen to your body after you're dead? Maybe don't make that leap if you think it's not going to be well received. Start with an I statement. Start with yourself. I've been thinking a lot about my end of life plans. I know that might seem weird, but I really feel passionate about green burial, and I want to make sure that my body is not embalmed, and I would like to return to the earth. And this is just an example. That might not be your decision. Or, I've been thinking a lot about my end of life plans, and it's very important to me that I am buried in my family's cemetery, which is in XYZ city, state, whatever, country. But you're opening that door by just talking about what you want, not necessarily going straight to them and say, what do you want? But it at least gets the that's the easiest way to at least get the conversation rolling, okay? You start with talking about what you want, and that's a gift to them too. So they may not have ever thought about that, to let them know, I want XYZ after I'm gone. But also, your plans for if you happen to have a terminal illness and you have a limited time left and you will be in a stage of dying for a while. Here are the things that I would like. I'm like, I'll use my own examples. I'm a little bit of a private person when it comes to things like that. I wouldn't mind people coming to say goodbye, but once I enter active dying, I really don't want people in the room. I would be comfortable with close family and a very few limited amount of close friends and my husband, and that's it. I don't want a lot of people around me when that happens, and I don't like to be touched a lot. I kind of just want to be left, but I love nature. If I can be outside, I know that's not necessarily an option, maybe, could be, but if we can have the window open, if I can hear birds and nature sounds, like these are things that are important to me. So those are things I can tell, like my loved ones, to help start that conversation. Sometimes if you don't want to start with your own wishes, or you're not sure about your own wishes, and that's part of the conversation, just pick a conversation question, right? So, I have the death deck. I read a question from that at the end of every episode. But if you don't have a death deck, you can Google or chat GPT, give me some conversation starters on end of life planning, right? Or ask me. I'm happy to give you a few. But you can do things like, hey, have you ever thought about what kind of care you might want if you have a terminal diagnosis? Or have you ever thought about what you would want your funeral to look like? Because that can be a fun one too. People love to talk about what they do and don't want for their funerals, right? Which, I'm sorry to spoil this for you, you won't be there. So it's really more for the people left behind. But if you can start, or even start with being goofy, right? Like, hey, if you die from overeating nachos, do you want me to tell anybody that? Pick something random. Like, I'll use another great one for me, because I always swear I'm going to die by petting something I'm not supposed to. So, like, hey, Nikki, if you died by petting a bear while you were hiking, do you want me to tell anybody that's how you died? Well, they would find out, but yeah, you could start with it being a little more lighthearted and fun, and then ease into the more serious conversations. But another great tip, be ready to listen. Be ready to be open and listen, and do not lecture. This is, if you're wanting to have these conversations because you want to understand your loved one's wishes and what they might want, or to get your own wishes across, that's fine. This is not the time or place for you to push your agendas on anybody. Like, if you're really passionate about green burial, awesome. That might not be what they want, and that might not be what their religion calls for. I don't know. But don't lecture them on what their wishes should be. Listen to what they want. Maybe they have a really neat reasoning for what they want. right? Maybe they want to shoot their ashes into space. You can do that. Maybe it's because their dad always wanted to be an astronaut and died too young. I don't know. They might have some really cool reasons. Just listen. You might get to hear a great story out of it. Don't push your agendas and don't push your beliefs on anybody when you're having these conversations. Mostly just try to keep it casual, especially if you don't think it's going to be well received, or if you don't think they're quite ready for a real serious conversation. Keep it light. And remember that this is going to be an ongoing dialogue. This isn't going to be something that's decided all in one. I mean, maybe if you have several hours to sit down, but if you're just starting these conversations, that's where you're at. You're just starting. Let's get step one. Let's talk about what you might want done with your remains, but just keep it light, keep it casual, and remember that this is going to probably be a continuing conversation over time, not just a one and done. There's a lot of decisions that need to be made before, during, and after death. If the person you're talking to seems really put off or starts showing anxiety or fear about their death or their mortality or end of life or any of these things, first of all, again, offer a listening ear, listen to them and what they're saying, hear them out, but offer them some resources too, or support. Maybe if they really are expressing some deep-rooted fear on terminal illness, maybe they have something that's genetic in their family and they're very scared about that thing. Share some resources with them. Do you know of support groups they can attend? You know of a death doula? Me. That they could talk to, just work through some of those anxieties and fears, because that's something I do. Any death doula can help with those things. But find some planning guides out there. Maybe they just, like, you have started this conversation and it opened up their whole mind to all the things that they need to do. And oh my God, I don't even know where to start. And they, give them, I'm always sharing buriedinwork.com on here. And I just had Adam on last week to talk about that website. That is a fantastic place to start. There are so many guides on there on end of life planning. Send them something like that. And even that website is very robust and there's a lot there. That might even be overwhelming. Start with a very simple checklist. If you want something really kind of simple and easy, I've got my workbooks and they're linked at my website. I've got Dear Loved One and Dear Mom and Dad. These are identical books. One is just formatted to any general person in your life that you care about, and one is geared towards talking to your parents. And there are great conversation starters in these workbooks with how to start the conversation and just a few light things to work on. I'll find an example here. Let's see. What utilities do you have that you're paying for, and what companies and account numbers? That's a great place to start. Do you have subscriptions that might need canceled? There's places in here you can write it in. You can keep this miscellaneous aftercare. There's all sorts of good stuff in there, but that's kind of like a start. These books are meant to be a start for a lot of these conversations. It's just some basic things. So it's not too overwhelming. As you can see, it's not a very thick book. It's 30 pages, I think? If that, 20. It's 20 pages. And it's a great starting point for these conversations. I have more robust things that I give for my clients with a lot more planning involved. But if you just want to start the conversation and get a few basic things planned out, this is a great place to start. So offer the help if they think they might need it. Okay? But overall, like I said, talking about death isn't going to make it happen. I promise. It's an important thing. We don't want to leave our loved ones in the dark. I know I talk about my brother a lot on this podcast, but when he died, it was unexpected, right? We were not expecting him to go. There was nothing in place. We didn't know what he necessarily would have wanted. Would he have preferred to be cremated, buried? We didn't know any of that. We knew a little bit about his finances. He spent some time in the hospital when he was in heart failure. So, we had things like where to pay his bills, because Mom had to do that for him while he was up in Cleveland at the Cleveland Clinic anyway, he was up there for a few months, and Mom had to take care of a lot of his stuff down here. So we had a little bit of an idea of what needed done and what his situations were, right? But if you were to die unexpectedly, and these things happen, people have cardiac events, strokes, get hit by, I lost a close friend of mine a few years ago in an automobile accident, younger than me. Obviously, she didn't plan for that to happen. None of us, can plan for these things. So if that happens, don't leave your loved ones in the dark as to what your wishes are and how to manage anything around your life. Because unfortunately, there's a lot of paperwork involved with death and dying. So it's a beautiful gift you can give your loved ones. And just starting these conversations is so important. Okay? And I know you know that. I talk about it all the time. So that is all. Thank you so much. So since we're at the end of the episode, it is time for Emma. The Death Deck. Woo. And now that I have video, you can see the weird face I make every time I do that. Okay, so I'm going to shuffle these up a little. And this is like half the deck because I'm tired of dropping cards all over the floor when I do this. Now I'm going to pull one at random. And we have... Oh, I know I've read this one before, but I like this. Which of these phrases do you feel is the worst to say to somebody after the death of a loved one? I know just how you feel. They're in a better place now, and everything happens for a reason. I would have to say C or A. B, I hate that one too. I don't like any of these, and I know just how you feel is like, no, you don't. You don't know how I feel. But everything happens for a reason. That's the one that really, really just grinds my gears, I guess. Because sometimes things don't happen for a reason. I know we as humans really want to tie things up. We want things to make sense. We want to have everything in black and white and spelled out. We want it to be just so neat and tidy, and it's not. Life is not that way. Life is messy. And things don't always happen for a reason. They don't. If there was a reason for my brother to die young and leave his children without a father, I would like to know what that reason is, because I don't see it. So I would have to go with that one. But I'd like to know what's your answer to this? Or is there something? The other one I hate is it was all in God's plan, because that makes God to seem like a really terrible, terrible person. So anyway, I would like to know what your answer is to the death deck question. So you can find me at nikkithedeathdoula.com. You can find me on Substack, and wherever you listen to your podcast, please shoot me a message. Let me know if you have a story you'd like to share on my podcast. You can do that if you go to my website, nikkithedeathdoula.com/podcast. There's a link there. You can fill out a form and request to be on the show. So I would love to hear from you. If you really like this episode, tell a friend about it. Tell somebody how awesome this podcast is. And even better, leave a rating and a review. That would be so helpful to me. That's how it helps more people find my show. Again, you can support me at patreon.com/nikkithedeathdoula. All the things. That's all. I'm going to stop talking now. Thank you all so much for tuning in this week. And remember, as always, it's on the back of my shirt. Your grief is yours. Your feelings are valid. And grief doesn't always have to suck. And you can get that on a shirt too, on my website. Good Grief with Nikki the Death Doula is produced by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC in Columbus, Ohio. Nikki the Death Doula LLC is for consulting, education, emotional support, and guidance, and is no way considered a funeral establishment or licensed mental health establishment. Scripts, editing, sound design, literally everything with this podcast is done solely by Nikki Smith of Nikki the Death Doula LLC, with the exception of the music. The music is Cheery Monday by Kevin MacLeod. Licensing information can be found at filmmusic.io.